when we finally took that leap with Tint Wiz, it was one of those things where we've talked about in the past. Like, I try to make something, I want perfect before I almost implement. That's a big problem I have that I've gotten better with, where it's just like, all right, we have that idea, let's just start doing it. And then as problems come up, let's change. Sure. And we can just keep adapting. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Born with Tint with the Miller Brothers. I'm thrilled to be here with my co-host, Josh.
How's it going? Today, we have a very special guest. We got Mr. Erik Devash with Tint Wiz and Tint Wizdom, probably the biggest podcast in the industry. I know that he's got over 100 episodes now. I don't know exactly how many, but I know there's quite a few. I know we've been on there 3 or 4 times. Today, we're going to talk about our use of Tint Wiz. He gives his backstory on actually kind of why Tint Wiz exists and his entry into the tint industry. We talk about the Javelina Jundred, Ricky finishing his 3rd 100-mile race and getting another qualifier for Western States. My success and failure and not completing 100 miles, but getting in my first 100K, 66 miles. We go into depth on that a little bit, and how we got to see Courtney DeWalter on the trail. So tune in, subscribe. Next episode, we are going to have Carlos.
The Texas Squeegee.
And SEMA's in town this week, so we're actually going to get about 6 of them in. So definitely subscribe if you want to follow along with everybody that's in town from SEMA.
So my business career started with e-commerce. I was 16, got into eBay, and eBay, selling things on online forums and so on. And then through college, I met somebody in a business class and got into his business, which was call centers. So 3rd year of college, I ended up with a big room of people. All of a sudden, I went from working at home online to this call center of 20 people. And day one, I remember I was told you're supposed to do a morning meeting. I'd never spoken in front of anybody before, let alone run a call center. So that was kind of my introduction to speaking to a lot of people, managing a lot of people, understanding the importance of having a script and rebuttals and processes and so on. It was my first introduction into using a CRM, though I didn't really use it. Our admin was the one who understood it. It was too complicated at the time for me to even bother with. And then from there, when I got out of the call center industry, or in the call center industry, actually, my partner at the time, we needed our windows tinted, both for our cars when we get a new car and then for the office. So David Serra was, he was friends with my old business partner. So he'd come by, tint the windows and so on. Eventually, I had him tint my condo windows downtown Orlando. Next thing I know, he buys a condo down the hall. We become friends. I get out of the call center and kind of get back into online marketing. I started helping him with the marketing, and then started going on jobs with him and going doing some removal with him, going on some yacht jobs, some flat glass quotes, just kind of the miscellaneous, learning the ropes. Then I decided to just get up and move and come to LA. So I tried out a couple cities. I liked LA the most. I stayed there. I didn't know anybody. So I thought, how can I get my friend David to come visit me? I know how. Put up a website for window tint, generate leads. I know the guy. He's not going to be able to turn down. If a good lead comes in, he's not going to be like, don't worry about it. He'll be like, we'll figure it out, like whatever. So started the website, was getting the leads in, and he said, go around, and I'm sure you can sell them to a tint shop around there. So I tried my luck. I had no luck. And then he came to visit. We went to a tint shop where we knew the people from other dealer meetings. They were within the network at the time. And the guy couldn't have been less interested in buying these leads. Like, it was kind of abrasive. So literally we got in the car and we were like, let's just fulfill these things ourselves. So that was kind of the flip of the switch. That was in the very beginning of 2014, January. So by March, what we did was I still had an office where I was doing marketing out of it. What we did was we put a Craigslist ad out for a part-time window tinter just per job. Had somebody reply right away. Great tinter by the name of Jeremy, still friends today. Came by, had him frost the windows at the office just so we can make sure he knew what he was doing. And then I said, well, we'll let you know when we have a job. So next lead came in, went on a consultation, sold a job, had him go do the installation, started rolling like that. And then I had my father passed away. So I had to go back to Florida for a year. I had a condo there. I had my mom there. I had all these things going on in Florida. So we left. And that meant managing this new business very remotely because it just kicked off. So started using email, everything, we're emailing the installers back and forth. When it's done, they'd email us back pictures, their schedule. We had a shared calendar, an Apple Calendar with them. And we had a Google Excel spreadsheet. When people would call, you hit search and try to find them in the list and see what was going on. After that year passed, the business, that first year, it was basically March, April till the end of the year. We did, a little over 300,000 in sales that partial year. And when I came back, I was like, all right, we need a strong admin. Thinking back to the call center days, we need, a place where they can answer the phones, and we kind of systematize this because it got a little overwhelming. So we rented a small office in Inglewood, about 1,200 square feet. We put 4 admin stations. We had a little room for film, shelves, and so on. And we just started rolling from there. We stocked it with film. We added a couple installers. And basically, as we were getting booked up, we would just buy like a cheap Prius, like a $7,000, $8,000 Prius, or we'd buy a van if we needed an installer. We'd wrap it, and they were on the road. But then we hit this point where it was clear that that system that we had in place of email, Excel, and Apple Calendar was not going to work at scale. And it wasn't going to be like, one of the biggest things that actually happened was I didn't know the zip codes because I was still new to LA. So 90046 and 90048 could be like 45 minutes apart.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. And I was just scheduling. So I said, could we build a system so that when we're scheduling the person, there's a map and it shows on the map where the person is, and I could see my other days so I can schedule them efficiently, because that meant I could have one consultant maybe do 3 consultants' jobs in a day, which means I can hire less and I have less, headaches and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then basically it was a process from there. The next 4 years we spent building out, it was Tint CRM at the time, building it out just to solve our problems. Like, hey, we have our consultants going to the jobs very efficiently, writing quotes on paper, and then taking a picture, sending it to us. And then in the office, we would build an Excel quote and send it out. And I was like, well, that was overwhelming because now you have all these backlogs of quotes to send out. We're like, how can we get them to quote in person quickly? And we just went through kind of solving the problems. Fast forward to 2018, I'm a Tim Ferriss fan, I'm a Gary Vee fan, and, and others. And one thing that always stuck with me was, like, double down on the things you love, focus on what you love. Like, you should be able, and the 80-20 rule too, about 80%, 20%, so on. So anyway, it kind of clicked one day and I said, I love working on the software. I think the software's so great, but I spend 99% of my time dealing with day-to-day stuff, managing day-to-day stuff. So I said, what if I could sell the company, keep the software, sell the company? So called up our supplier at the time. We were one of their largest purchaser. So I figured they would have the best interest in making sure, the account went to somebody within their network. That same day, they had somebody that buys up businesses. Matt DeLorenzo from Solar Art contacted me. He said, I heard your business is for sale. I'd love to meet with you. And we met at a Starbucks, showed him kind of the basics. He said, how much do you want? I said, how much? And a few days later, we were in negotiation. Later that year, we sold the company. So that was December 2018, signed the papers. And from there, spent 2019 taking everything we had in that software, starting from scratch with everything we learned, and building what is now Tint Wiz. And fast forward to today, here we are.
Wow.
That
was really cool to hear, actually. There's a lot about that I didn't know. And yeah, that makes sense. That's wild. That's actually pretty cool. So you found a problem and you solved it for yourself and realized that the whole industry needed to solve that same problem.
So I looked at other CRM options, right? And I thought back to when I was in a call center and I didn't know how to use our own CRM because it was a little complicated for me at the time, because it took time to learn it, and I just never had that time to learn it. So I thought the same thing for our installers. I was like, well, what's the reality? They're coming from shops. They're like specifically coming from shops where they would drive to the shop in the morning. They would pick up a piece of paper. They would find out what their job is for the day. They would grab the film. They would go do the job. They would go back at the end of the day, drop it off, and so on. And I said, if I want that person now to grab an iPad and do everything digitally, it better be easy. Because they're not going to spend a month or two learning a software.
Especially tinters.
No.
It's just not going to happen.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, getting us to go from paper to digital, especially with the way our dad ran things, was a struggle. And we actually even tried another software before we got Tint Wiz.
And we were still even using that in a way to where it accommodated the way my dad wanted to use it, I would say. So I still don't think we're using that one to its potential. But if anything, it seemed if it came off like it would have been like needed like a month or two to train somebody to get it to really get into the inner workings of it. And when we finally took that leap with Tint Wiz, it was one of those things where we've talked about in the past. Like we both try to, me especially, I try to make something I want perfect before I almost implement. That's a big problem I have that I've gotten better with, where it's just like, all right, we have the idea, let's just start doing it, and then as problems come up, let's change, and we can just keep adapting, and we can just keep changing and keep rolling with it. You know, like when we started using tasks for like. And if like me telling everybody, like if you want something done or you want something from me, because we got to the point where like I usually have a pretty good memory, usually, but if like task it to me, like if it's sitting in my tasks and it doesn't get done on the time that you asked me to get done, that is completely on me. You did exactly what I needed you to do, is let me know it's timestamped to what day and time and what you needed done. It's going to get done. And if it doesn't, that's completely on me. There's no questions. Oh, I told you this at this time. And nope. Did it say it was a task? No, it wasn't. Okay, I'm sorry that I didn't remember, but at the same time, you have to follow that procedure. As soon as we implemented that and started kind of hammering out the details of it, the improvement in communication, like times 10, like instantly. Right. And then worked out the little things here and there, what should be tasked, shouldn't be tasked, how we manage certain things. But like it was something to where we were able to throw it at our installers too, and let them get used to it. And they relatively, as soon as we explain the why to them of like, hey, this is why this is so important. This is why we need to take photos. Because if we don't take photos, hey, we just got accused of scratching this person's car. Hey, thankfully we have this photo. I zoomed in, and that's usually like the best way of almost showing the guys the why is when something like that happens. I just walked back. You guys just saved us like a couple $1,000s. Thank you. Doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing.
You save that stress and conflict that you probably would have had with that.
Oh yeah, and the customer even immediately like, oh yeah, oh my bad, I didn't see it.
And yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I want to say, and instantly there, and then they're on the other side. I'm so sorry. I've never seen it. It's like, hey, what are you gonna do? Like you've inspected your car that closely to see that if you had that one little market, you just got paint protection done, and now it's drawing to where the areas you've never really looked before. Same thing with tint too. It happens. It's not. I don't blame any customer for it. Like you drop it off, you think you
don't look until after. You look closer after, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The fact that the way the software was built, you can tell it now that we're actually using it and putting systems in place, and you can tell that it's designed to work for, especially for flat glass, the automotive side also, but like. Yeah. The systems are in place if you use them, using the task, having photos in the project, being able to, like, the fact that, like you said, in the past, get a piece of paper, the measurements might not be exact. So there's no chance that you're going to pre-cut that until you actually physically get there yourself because it wasn't you that was on there, especially if you're using subcontractors or something like that. But when you're using it, in a systematized way, and the measurements are put in a certain way, and there's notes if there's anything special, or there's pictures if there's anything special. We're able to pre-cut every job now and show up with the patterns all cut, and just everybody just starts installing. Like that saves us a ton of time on every single job.
And also too, to the customer, they see that, like they ask, well, what's the next process, or what if I want to move forward, what happens? I tell every customer the same thing. You get your proposal. If everything looks good, hit approve. If there's shades you want to change, go ahead and comment in the bottom notes what shades you want changed in what rooms or what areas. As soon as that approval gets sent in, I get a notification. I reach out to you. We get you on schedule. My guys will cut your entire job up if you know exactly what shades you want, which 80%, maybe even a little bit more. Majority of the customers know exactly what they want. There are some customers that are kind of up in there, and we tell them that's fine too. Just what we'll do with that is we'll start in one room where we know you want dark film. We'll put that in there, let you look at it, and then we'll go from there. We can cut on site. It's no big problem at all. But after we get to that point, guys come in, they lay down their pads, and then go through the whole spiel of how we do everything, like, and telling them, like, my guys come in with patterns in hand. I don't got to bring boxes in, don't got to bring a cutter in, don't got to clutter anything up. They're like, absolutely love it, you know. So it's the improvement on communication, and also just being able to make everything flow so smoothly. I mean, it's allowed us to expand within the past like 2-3 years. We've already brought on what, 6 people through both departments.
Yeah,
at least.
Yeah.
So it's been a game changer. Now, one question I kind of had, designing it, did you design it to be used in a certain way, or did you design it? Because I get the feeling that you designed it almost kind of like Photoshop in my eyes, or even QuickBooks. It has certain ways to use certain parts of the program, but at the same time, you can mold it and use it to how your company kind of operates. Was that the goal from the beginning? Is that something you saw from the game that you wanted to, yes, this is how certain things can be used, but at the same time, you can mold it into how you want it?
Right. And that was actually one of the shifts from how Tint CRM was, the original software, to Tint Wiz was, you know, I really had Tint CRM. We built it to be very specific to exactly how I thought it should be done. But with Tint Wiz, we wanted to maintain that same framework and structure, but also give the freedom to be able to do it the way you want to do it. Or, you know, so it, you know, the framework's there, but, you know, so it's for tint, but you could do anything with it, really. You could sell anything, and there's not really restrictions within it, or, you know.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah, like there's ability for adding different services. So window cleaning.
graphics.
Yeah.
Right, I saw
Graphics was a big part of our business
yeah.
at the time, too, and having to, you know, save mock-ups and save artwork files and have an understanding of like what order, you know, like being able to save them and say like, what order did the person view, you know,
that's huge to be able to click
there's
on
revisions, and you have to have a place for all those files. And if they're in Dropbox or Google Drive, like that's very time consuming.
Yeah. Instead of just going into the project, click on the picture and know exactly which one was loaded at what time by who, and everything. The details in it are like, you don't realize it at the time until you go back to that project and you're like, oh, I have all of this information already sitting here and I don't have to go now search for everything. It's, like I said, it's game changer.
In 2014 was still, it was very much in my memory what happened in 2007, 8, 9, and how that affected the economy and how that even affected other window film dealers that I had seen in our network, our dealer network, that downsized and cut their staff and cut their location because things changed. And it was obvious to me that over the course of my lifetime, things are going to change. And you have to kind of foresee that and prepare for it, because there's no shortage of businesses. They have their great times and they have their bad times. They grow and then they come down. Like when you're newer in business and you're able to get those contracts, well, you got those contracts from somebody else. And why? Because they might be at a stage where, well, they might be bigger, but they might not be doing it as quickly, or they might not be able to get out there. They might not be efficient. And there's those pros to being new and pros to being big, and cons to being new and cons to being big. And I wanted to use, I felt like the software could be the advantage that made our business at the time, and I still feel that way now, the businesses that use it, unique in the sense that if you worked for our company, you could pull up that customer before they finished saying their address. You didn't have to know how to spell it because Google pulled up addresses that were, as you were typing it, around it. So you didn't even need to know how to spell it. You're able to do that quickly, as opposed to if you use the system most like dentist office, it feels like uses, it takes them 5 or 10 minutes to schedule you. And that sort of like, as an admin, if I can schedule somebody in 4 minutes and make them feel amazing, like they had great customer service, or I can take 10 minutes and feel like, gosh, this is taking forever, that could be the difference between 3 other phones ringing at that time, which will stress out that admin, right? Because the phone's ringing and they're sitting on the call and they're looking through this slow system and they can't find what they need to do. That whole thing, and the customer feedback at the end of that call, like, wow, that was amazing, thank you, I'll see you then. Are they going to make another phone call after that? Or are they going to say, well, that was the company I want to use? And if they make another phone call, how's that phone call going to compare to their previous phone call? And, like if a consultant can go to 7 consults in a day as opposed to 3, they can make two and a half times as much money there than they can working for a company that doesn't schedule as efficiently, which means when we, years down the road, when our consultant is just killing it and they're so experienced and so on, and some other tint company says, hey, why don't you come work for us? We can pay you a little more. Well, the chances are they can't pay him a little more. They can't afford to pay him more. They don't know how that person's making so much money, and it's because of efficiency. And that went down to our installers and across the board.
No, I'd say that's probably been my biggest improvement in the past 5 years is realizing how important it is to be efficient from every single little task. Just stepping into the role, or the role being not really dropped on us, but when my dad obviously having a stroke and like completely cutting ties from the company, it being dropped on us, it really became like a huge like, all right, like I need to be as efficient as humanly possible. Especially when I was trying to do too much myself. I was trying to be installer and try to run the company at the same time. Was too much, and then I finally started backing away, finding my ground, and I mean, Tint Wiz helped with a lot of that. Finally, actually implementing certain things where it's like, all right, how can we save time? Where can we save time?
Yeah, the map built into Tint Wiz. Listen to you tell that
Scheduling.
story. Like,
oh my God,
I can look at my week or my day and see where everything is and which crew's going where, and then I can see we're getting better and better at scheduling stuff near other stuff. Like, all right, this day we're going to be on this section of town. This day we're going to be on this section of town, and that extra 30 minutes driving back and forth between 2 or 3 jobs is another job gets in.
And it wears on you, right?
Yeah.
And if you're going on a consultation and you're on the street and then you go down the street to another consultation, that's 2 minutes. If you just sold the first one, you're on fire. You're going to sell the second one as opposed to sitting in the car for 45 minutes and getting out. Also, we just did the job down the street. I just came from your neighbor's house. They're getting this. Like that all plays into the sales process. And to your point about, your father having a stroke and kind of it, being like a moment where you're like, we have to now get this, reevaluate, I guess, how we're doing things. I think, that's something that I encourage everybody to kind of think about now and say, let's pretend that, the economy changes and things get cut in half. Not saying you start cutting your staff, but I mean, think, what would I do then? What do I do if things go wrong? Are those things that maybe I need to do now and I'm just putting them off until like the day actually I need to do them?
Oh yeah.
Because you will make those changes, right? Like if you're paying rent that's too high, when something happens, you'll figure out a way to get out of that lease because, sorry, this is what happened. But what about making that decision when it's the right time for you or best for you ahead of time, if you can?
Timing's huge. We got really lucky that what happened with our dad happened when it did, to be honest.
During COVID, kind of?
Yeah, it was, October of 2020. We had already been using Tint Wiz for some time. Our cousin, who's now our lead sales for residential commercial, she is doing all the consults. She lost her job because of COVID, and we needed someone to go with my dad and help get him onboarded with using Tint Wiz because he's not the most tech savvy person ever. And we were kind of like, we're doing this, and it was kind of perfect. So she was getting on the job training directly with him on the sales while doing Tint Wiz and kind of teaching him how to do it, and mostly doing Tint Wiz. And then she was doing some sales on her own already at that point. He had his stroke, and it was like, all right, you're it. And she came in and crushed it, and immediately is doing just as good, if not better than him. And she's the one who was talking with Ricky, doing the Tint Wiz part of it, like getting the systems in place. So it was like, luckily we were already in that transition, which is what made it even easier.
Yeah, we were right about there. She'd gotten a little bit of a taste of doing sales because she was assisting my dad, pretty much doing all of the answering calls, inputting, scheduling, stuff like that, bouncing off him while he drove. And then he had caught COVID, was out for 2 weeks because of it. And that was really her first taste of like, here you go out and do this. She crushed it, did what she could do. And then I think it was, a couple months later, if that, then that's when he had a stroke. And then it was really like, she really had, if anything, like, I had the company kind of dumped on me to a point, but at the same time, I've been kind of training for this technically my whole life. Like I never left the company, and that wasn't because, I tried numerous times to go get different jobs, and my dad would always just give me a raise, throw more money at me and say, no, you make more money here. I was, okay, works for me. I just wanted to kind of go experience something different, just kind of see how other things ran, work under other people just to see how it was. And that's kind of always what he always would come back to me, no. And then as I started installing, I realized that it came to me like, I'm actually pretty good at this, and I enjoy doing it. That's something I think that a lot of people don't have. They go to work because they need to make money and they need to pay bills. And that's just, it is what it is. You get lucky sometimes, you find something that you love. I got really lucky. I got to grow up in a small business, experience the small business aspect of it growing as I got older, the pains of people coming in, people going, managing people, got to experience all that. And then I just fell in love with our industry. And it took until probably I was about 17, 18, just getting out of high school. I had probably my early 20s. This is when I kind of realized, like, I actually am really good at what I do. And I really enjoy this. And then it kind of grew from there. So I can't really complain too much when that all happened. Like, my dad was already telling me, he already pulled us aside and said, hey, like, in 4 or 5 years, I'm out. I'm done. I'm about 40 years in. I want to be grandpa. And we were definitely a yes. Because I've already made the statement once. My dad was the biggest fuel for this company, and also the blanket too at the same time, because of his experiences coming up in the industry, either being backstabbed or slighted or whatever it may be. He built up a callus of really hard to trust people, and I understood that. I understand that now. I didn't when I was younger. Me and him got into it constantly. Like they get into it. They got into it constantly when he was working for the company to begin with. Me and my dad would get into it a little bit differently. And it was, for me, it was just like, if you're asking me to do something, like, let me do it. Let me fail at least, or let me succeed before you've already stepped on my toes and called the person and told 3 to 4 other people the same thing you just told me in the 10 minutes it took me to drive to the shop. For me to go address the situation, them say, your dad called already. I'm like, cool. All right. So this is a huge waste of time. And so that's what me and him got into constantly. But with Misty was just like, she got some formal training, and then it was just like, you're the person. Like, good luck. Yeah. And thankfully and like even jumping into Tint Wiz too, like doing the proposals and stuff, it was, if anything, a little scary to begin with, because my dad definitely had his own way of using it. I'm not going to say it was the wrong way, but it was very much a way of how you explain the first CRM program at the marketing, or the first job. It was, he used it in a way to where if he had to teach someone how to use it, it was going to take him at least a month or 2 to show him how he used it his way, so it worked for him. And that was not going to work. We need to be able to, which we realize now, if any one of us goes down, I need someone to be able to either step into my shoes or at least operate through the program to where there's minimal oversight needed, to where people can just do their jobs and they can understand. And that's what we're kind of going through right now, is setting up standard of operations and explaining like this is why this is so important, to where if something happens, there is no questioning, did they do this or do that? No. Did it follow the line of procedures? Did it go through the program? Yes or no? Plain and simple, black or white. And Misty did an amazing job stepping up into it, but without having the program, I think we would have had some serious problems, because trying to train someone in our industry, because we took her, knew nothing about our industry. And then with just conversations between me and her of like explaining like, all right, if you have these kind of windows, this is what you want to sell and this is what you're looking for. And now she's at the point now, I mean, she's crushing it. She's absolutely crushing it. And then even with the program too, it's something where we're all changing slowly and evolving and still trying to grow and use the program even more efficiently. But the efficiency that it's brought to our company has absolutely allowed us to get to the size we're at right now, and let alone do the things that we kind of do, like able to send people off for training and lose parts of our company, and to where the other guys step right in. I mean, me and Josh, we were just at the race this past weekend. His crew has crushed it, absolutely crushed it. I've watched all the jobs go through. Like there's 0 notifications coming through to me that like, hey, this was forgot. Like they know what they need to do. They're getting their jobs done. And I mean, I haven't had to say a word. I have no idea how he's been communicating with them.
It's been good. I've gotten one task on roles not getting attached to one job, but
it's
all good.
Yeah, that's just that.
That's actually like, okay. That's not normal.
Yeah, that's just like, and by any means, I don't hold anyone in the company to where like I don't want any tasks ever of what's going wrong. Like, no, something's gonna get forgotten. I do it myself. trying to think. I know last week there was something I forgot the task, and it's just like it was one of those things. Like it all of a sudden came up, and I was like, "Damn it, my bad." I mean,
That's the beauty of it, though. When something does get missed, it always gets caught by the office because they have eyes on everything.
Yep.
And when they're going to do the warranty paperwork or whatever at the end, they notice like, hey, you didn't select roles for this. So I get a task, he gets a task. Now we know exactly, okay, we got to look at this job. Which roles did you guys take? Make sure you put them onto the job. Like,
yeah,
that should have happened already, but it gets caught, like, okay, cool.
yeah.
Like that's an extra benefit that's sitting there for everything. If the wrong credit card, like in Tint Wiz, you received payment, but you put Visa and it was actually a MasterCard. When they're going over it in the office and actually making sure QuickBooks lines up, they go, oh, they selected the wrong thing in here. Like, okay, cool. It gets caught, it gets switched, and everything's fine.
Yeah, and it's just, it's getting to the point of explaining to both crews on the auto and on the flat glass side, just say, yes, very small, minor thing, but we keep that stuff in line because if we want to keep growing and you guys want to keep moving up the chain, we want to keep getting bigger as a company, we need to stay in line with what our SOPs are, just because it might be small little tasks, but if we keep getting bigger, those small little tasks, if they're getting skipped here and there through multiple crews, now you expect the admins to try to catch it. Like something is going to unfortunately slip through to where it doesn't get caught on their end, but now you're costing their time to where they could either, we want our phones ringing off the hook to where all they need to be worrying about is answering the phones, getting jobs booked, getting cars in there, because that's how our auto guys make the money is more cars. The more cars you do, the more money you make. Same thing with houses. The more square footage we can put up, the more money everyone makes. And then that's how we kind of set up almost our pay structure in the company, is that everyone feeds off everybody from the bottom up or the top down. Is no, for anyone to make more money, more work obviously has to come through, and it benefits everybody. If our auto guys do more cars, our front office makes more money. And then the manager makes more money because he's running his crews efficiently and he's hitting his quotas. And it just an ever rolling circle of that's how everyone wants to. It's how everyone's going to make more money, is if we're all more efficient together. And if you keep all those little things checked in place, you're not wasting. There's no time wasted anywhere, and then we all can just continually focus on getting more work in. Everyone make more money,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and leading from quality is always an advantage, right? Like if you have the better product, you got the better value. That feeds into it also, right? Referrals, I think, are everything. So leading from a position that we always have coming from our dad of quality first, now we're getting way more efficient while keeping the quality by having a bigger crew, being scaled up and using technology. Now we're getting to see the benefits of that, right? Like I've looked at Tint Wiz, I think I talked about this last episode, but over 50% of our work right now is either referral or repeat customer, like in the last 90 days. So it's like, okay, cool. Like that helps drastically by everybody being on the same page, having the pictures. I get at least once or twice a week customers complimenting us on how well we communicated in the whole process, just because of the text messages they're getting and just every time anything comes through, as soon as they approve something, somebody's getting an alert and they're getting contacted to be scheduled, and it's instantly. They're getting contacted back immediately every single time. And having had people come do work on my house in the last year and not have that experience repeatedly by several different contractors, where I had people no call, no show. And it's just like, it really made me kind of aware to like what we're doing and why we're getting those compliments is like, oh, that's not the standard operating procedure for everybody.
No.
And like, I think that needs to be the place you lead from. And we're really using Tint Wiz as a vehicle to just make that even better.
Oh, that's I would say within the past 90 days or more, 40% of our reviews probably mention the fact about either have something to do with Tint Wiz in a sort of way of the proposal coming through, how efficient it looks, how it presents itself compared to the handwritten proposal that's handed off by our competitors, the notifications, just anything that has to do with them getting anything from the program and stuff, or even just how the crews are ran, looking through the notes and the pictures, taking pictures of the windows as we're giving the proposal, just so the crew knows what they're looking at. Oh, I need a ladder. Okay, this is the ladder setup I need to have. All of that.
Documents. Being able to e-sign documents in there, which is a feature you added. That's the other thing, like that's bled off on us that Ricky was talking about earlier, like being able to test and iterate and not wait till something's perfect. It's been amazing watching you build the software, having followed from like early, I guess pretty early on, because I definitely was seeing stuff about it in 2019.
So we started dabbling with it.
And you've just constantly been adding stuff as it's needed and constantly improving. It's like, okay, it's not perfect today, but it's better than what's out there, and I'm constantly making it better. It has definitely been, from my eyes, your message. Constantly asking for help. The support that you guys give is actually insane. The fact that I can get on the app right now and I could ask a question to like, hey, this roll isn't in the system.
10 minutes.
And just give a picture of it. And I get a message back in less than 10 minutes most of the time. Yeah. And that roll has now been added. So now I can select that type of film and add it into my inventory. It's like instantaneous. So that's definitely, seeing you execute on that has helped us, I think, definitely be like, okay, we just need to, we know we want to do this thing. Let's just start doing it. It's not going to be perfect today. Let's see what the result is, and then we can make a change as we need to. All right, this is how we're going to use Tint Wiz right now. Let's start using it that way. Oh, we're having this problem. Okay, what is it? Okay, we're not looking at, we just had one recently. We weren't looking at the sheet when you have like the project. We would click sheet, go straight to table because we print labels. So my guys, we would never actually look at the sheet, and they're putting notes specifically on specific rooms and windows. And if you're just like in the main window and you got to open up every room to see those notes, it's like, we're not doing that. And typically we're looking for notes at the bottom or the top, and didn't realize there was a lot more detailed notes in there under the sheet. And when we open sheet, we go straight table, copy it, put it into Excel, print labels, and we never even looked at that sheet. And then Ricky's like, but don't you, it's right there in front of you when you're looking at sheet. I'm like, well, I don't ever look at sheet. So then I looked at it and I'm like, oh, this is a better way to look at it. So now it's like, that's part of our SOPs now on my side. Like, they're looking at it one way doing the consults. It caused a little bit of a miscommunication because we weren't looking at it the same way. And it was like, oh, solved. Okay, problem solved. We're going to look at the sheet every single time now. And now we got all the detailed notes on every single room. There won't be any miscut patterns, because it was like something like, the actual frame to frame measurements were like 36.5, but in the notes it said it was 36 gasket to gasket. Rubber. It was like, okay, so patterns were cut that ended up being a ½ inch short because we didn't see that note. And it's like, okay, now we'll never miss that again.
Yeah. No, there's numerous things that pop up every once in a while that like, I didn't even realize, just because I'm so far out of, I'll install-ish. I think I've probably been on like 3 or 4 installs in the past month, so I really can't say I'm really installing. But I noticed that beforehand, how we were doing inventory, when we would cut a job up, we would pull up the camera, scan the QR, click on it, check the roll out, then cut the job up, and then I'd go in there and then I'd find it in inventory and click on it and then add it to the job. I didn't realize you could just go into inventory when the job's approved. I know that the 2 rolls or whatever rolls colors, they pop right there. You can just click on it, find the roll, click on it, and then it's there. And then you can just click checkout. And I was just like, that blew my mind. I went to him. I was like, can you believe it? And they're like, yeah, we know. I'm like, oh, my bad. I had no idea. But like, and then even when it comes to checking the rolls back in, I don't got to open my camera ever now. Like, that just completely got rid of an entire step, which I'm pretty sure when we first started using it wasn't there, but it got added, and it's seamless now. And then adding the film removal, like the small little drop downs when you actually give them the proposals, because I had to take over giving proposals for the first 3 months of this year. Misty, she gave birth to her son. So it was one of those things where we were kind of setting up and we're trying to figure out who was going to go out and do that. And at the time I was already doing scheduling. So I was like, what makes the most sense is I'll go do it. Like, I've been out on sales when I was younger. Like, I know the films. I know what I'm doing for the most part, I would say. So I went out, and how I did my proposals compared to how Misty did them, I would say they're polar opposites, but there was quite a bit difference in it, because I'm looking at the proposals now that I'm figuring out, like, oh, it does this, it does that. I'm looking at through an installer's eyes, like, because that's where my background is. So when she came back, we slowly started implementing small changes, like, if anything, hitting the removal, tempered glass, instead of like we would take we would tag a room if we're doing safety film. Like, we would put the measurements just for the doors in its own thing. We'd put a T at the end of that title name. That means tempered. That means those are getting dowed. Like, there is no missing that. I noticed in there you can just click tempered. You just drop down, hit tempered, to where it's like, look at the notes. So at first we had a little bit of miscommunication to where, 'cause how I was doing, they weren't getting like, hey, we didn't know there was tempered windows. I was like, oh, I clicked on that right there. And then slowly just started making those changes and implementing them and just slowly putting them in. You know, the amount of detail that goes into the program, I absolutely love. And I very much appreciate how much you actually do for our industry too. Like that's where I'm kind of curious too. Like where I know you said you Gary V, Tim Ferriss and all that. Is that where that came from? Because you said in 2014 when you were trying to sell the leads off and stuff like that, or a little bit past that, you were met with resistance. I would say that was typical of our industry, just from me growing up in it. Like it was dog eat dog. If you were friends with somebody, it definitely wasn't in your city. I mean, you had your certain shops that you respected, and there was no like, you didn't have to worry about certain people because you were good. But then like everyone else, it's just like, it was, I'm going to put you out of business. I'm going to put you out of business. And that was, unfortunately, the majority of our industry was like that. Like when you saw that, like, is that what inspired you? I don't know. It just drove you to go the exact polar opposite? Because you've definitely created a movement in our industry as much as you might want to push back and say, no. You 100% have made a huge impact on our industry of actually like coming together and taking, like we had niches of, if you were with your certain brand. So, Vista with Lumar, Panorama with Solar Guard, you would go to your conference meetings. Those were always high energy meetings because you're surrounded by like-minded people. They're from different cities, so that helps too. But you're all kind of on the same page when it comes to where you're at, I guess, with your business. And you'd be way more open, or everyone else would be way more open because you're within your brand to share kind of like your industry secrets, to share them around. Now it's at a point where when we have events, like no one cares about what brand you're selling or anything, and people we just openly talk. And it's like, I love the shift in if anything, it's definitely, given a lot of juice to our industry, but is that solely from like Gary Vee and Tim Ferriss? Like, where'd that come from?
You know, things that stand out was when Gary Vee was starting his marketing company or growing his marketing. I mean, starting and growing his marketing company, he mentioned like how, I don't remember the exact wording, but basically he was going to open he was going to treat it like a honey business or a business of honey, like use the word honey. And like the concept was that it was going to be like a business where like like he treated everybody right within his company, and like everything was like fun within his company. And like that was something that we had implemented within our company, was like always respecting everybody, always treating everybody how you want to be treated, always being nice. Like there's no excuse like, hey, we're all human, but like it's not okay because I'm the owner of the company for me to huff and puff or to blow up at one of my staff members because of a mistake or like any of that. Like I saw that as, if that happens, however big the house of cards has gotten, that's like somebody coming in and just smacking the whole thing, because people don't forget when you disrespect them, when you act that sort of way, and so on. Now, that was the culture within the company. That was the culture with like how we treated our customers too. Regardless of the problem, we were going to take care of it. It didn't matter what it is, we're going to take care of it. And then that like made it easier for us to deal with customers, because our staff, all the way down to the admins, knew if somebody's unhappy about something, there's always going to be a customer who calls in, and whether they're right or wrong, they're unhappy. But there was a relief knowing like, hey, this isn't going to be a big deal because I know we're going to take care of it, as opposed to like, oh my gosh, now I've got to deal with this and I've got to be the bearer of bad news and so on. So kind of fast forwarding to your point about the industry, my feelings on the industry were what you just said. It was kind of like, I'm going to put you out of business. I'm going to do, and so on. And like, I was part of the groups on Facebook for years before I made a single post or comment. I was there because I didn't care about the drama. I didn't care about the bad talking to each other. But what I did care about was the little bits of nuggets of information where somebody would share something and I would read it, and then it would come up in business and I'd be like, oh, thank you. Like, or whatever it is. And, so now fast forward to Tint Wiz is going to be something that the industry is going to adopt. I knew that resistance was there. I didn't want to be the pioneer with the arrows in my back. I wasn't going to be the person who went on Facebook group and said, hey, everyone, I want you to, this is the software you have to use. This is going to change your business. Trust me, because I knew it was going to happen. Like whoever was kind of interested was probably going to be quiet and go check out the software. Yeah. But whoever wasn't interested was going to spend the rest of their life using me as a punching bag to talk shit, right? Like that just felt like what was going to happen.
Oh, they would've.
So, right. So like the strategy was stay quiet, just kind of, you know, the people who want to use your software, I felt would find it and try to use it. And I would invest all of our time, energy, and resources into those people. And the people who didn't know about it or maybe had, you know, wanted to be convinced as to why they wanted to use it, I wanted time and, you know, our users' feedback to be what convinces them, not me trying to convince them. Now, you know, one of the very memorable events in my mind was during COVID when you posted a video of adding inventory, and it was one of your kids, I don't remember who, a handful of kids, in putting inventory. Now, for so many reasons, that made me feel so good because number one, it's like just to see you all, a company that I respect, and I knew of you at the time already and so on, using Tint Wiz is just beyond exciting. And then you saying, like, look how easy it is. Our kids are putting it into inventory. I'm like, all right, like it is easy. I know it's easy, but it's like seeing that and seeing like, you know, and basically it just kind of reciprocated from there. So like you know, and I appreciate, you know, you saying like how I've helped change the industry and so on. And all the good that I feel like I've done for other people, I feel like I've gotten it back. I feel like I've gotten it back in friends, in positive feedback, in growth of the company, in like fun experiences and like how these events go and like knowing you and being here today and so on. So like, you know, it's like a mutual reciprocal thing. And like, you know, that's kind of how I think things should be. It's not about what I need from you. It's what we can do together and being really conscious of like, is this one-sided or is this two-sided? I don't just want all the users. I want to make their lives better. I want to, you know, better the industry and so on. So it wasn't like the grand mission. I didn't see it coming necessarily. I just felt like this is the right way to do it. Treat people like you want to be treated. Nobody's life look, our lives are limited, right? We have only a certain amount of years and we don't even know how many years and they seem to fly by and getting faster and so on. So like my time is absolutely not any more important than your time and so on. And just that kind of shift in mentality in my life, because it wasn't like I was like that. When in my early 20s, it was like my time was all that mattered was my life. Like, you know, like what I want to do, what I want and so on. So like that shift in mentality, I don't know. It's just, there's so many great people. And I think it's just like, as people's guards went down, it all worked together in the community. And, you know.
I definitely do think the timing was, I mean, unfortunately the whole, you know, country shutting down and everything kind of how everything happened.
Right.
I think definitely something I would say our industry kind of needed.
Because the country's shutting down, whether it be your neighbor or your competitor or, you know, anybody, you kind of felt that sense of like, hey, we need each other. We got to look out for each other. Like, you know, it's not like, you know, it's so that definitely set the tone, right? And then getting on the live streams and starting to like bring people on and first say like, hey, here's who I am. And like, if you're going to wonder who I am, well, you're going to have hours and hours. You're not going to be able to, you know, you have the time. I learned that from like Joe Rogan's podcast. And like the people that go on that podcast was like, you got to know them for hours and hours. It's hard. Like when Joe Rogan was being attacked a few years ago, it's hard to really get any traction with some of those talking points against him because you could go, well, we have 10 years and like 30,000 hours of him being his authentic self. You can't say that just doesn't fit in. And I felt like establishing that base for myself so you can see who I am. And if you like me, you don't, you don't. But you're not going to be confused about who I am. And nobody's going to be able to hopefully lie to you about who I am. And then bringing other people on was like super cool because I get to make a friend. Every podcast that I got to bring someone on, by the end of that podcast, like we were friends, I felt like. And it also got to show other people like, okay, I have Ricky Miller on. And you saw Ricky Miller, you listened to Ricky Miller for 2 hours and you start to like him and you appreciate some of the stuff he shared. When Ricky Miller posts something on Facebook, people are less likely to be like, screw you, what do you know, blah, 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 you suck. Because it's like, no, the guy doesn't suck. I just saw him on, like, he definitely doesn't suck. You know, and like, as that library of people I interviewed grew, I felt like I think that had an effect because it was less, you weren't going to get away with talking bad about somebody as easily because that person, know him. Everybody can know him. Everybody got to meet that person.
Totally.
It wasn't just a icon or.
Oh,
You actually right at the beginning of everything shutting down, I was like, we got to get on Tint Wizdom, and I think was it both of us or
Yeah, we've been on 4 times.
So it was like right at the beginning of everything shutting down, I was like, hey, rather than trying to figure out what words we want to type out and post on Facebook to let the world know how we're reacting to this, no matter what we type down in written word, somebody's going to have an opinion that's like not reflecting what we're actually trying to communicate because that's what social media is, if you haven't figured it out yet. It's why having the podcast I thought was genius, and it's why we now have one. As I was like, let's be able to get people to tell their story and their perspective. Then we get an opportunity to tell ours in a way that can't be distorted. It's authentic. Same thing, recognizing what Rogan did, recognizing what you did. Having us on at that point in time was really nice because it was like, okay, here's what we're doing to respond to everything being shut down. We're going to take advantage of the extra time that we do have from having limited operations right now. We were still able to do architectural and actually still automotive. We had county accounts that we kept coming in without having the front of the shop open. The front of the shop was closed for a little while, but then we figured out, okay, we're going to set up an e-commerce site, let people purchase online, make sure they don't even have to come in the lobby way. They already have everything picked out, just drop the cars off. And we slowly transitioned back to being fully open. But like, all right, we're not just going to sit around and do nothing. And it was the perfect opportunity to add inventory in because you had just added that to Tint Wiz. And I was like, well, guys, this is the thing that like we need the most for architectural right now is know where our film is. And I actually had the idea of using my kids because it was like, well, let's go down. You guys can help me. This is actually really easy. And this will be really good content for me to show my people. Like, if my kids can be putting stuff in the system, you can't complain that it's too hard to do. And then it ended up like, I'm like, oh, I'm going to share it. And then I wasn't even thinking at the time how cool that would be for you. It was like, I was thinking kind of selfishly, like, my people are now going to see this is so easy that Josh's kids can do it. Like, all right, cool. It's like, I don't know, just, yeah, the idea of let's all help each other out and grow the whole industry. Let's grow the pie. It's definitely infectious and it works. I mean, you can see it working. Everybody I know in these groups that are acting in that way are doing better.
Oh yeah, no, I mean even at the tin off, we ran into a couple local tin shops that we already asked them, we want to have you guys on, and like go back 10, 15 years, that would have never happened, ever. Like I would have gotten pushback from my dad in some sort of way. I know for a certainty. I would have, just because of his past experiences. And now it's at a point, it's like we can have an honest conversation. There is so much glass in this one city, just in Vegas, that we could all be tinting as much as we possibly could every single day for years. We're going to get nowhere near it. No, we're not going to touch it. No, we're going to scratch it. Like, that's the other huge problem we're having now is labor. Like, finding installers. You know, everyone is either scared to train because they're scared they're going to become competition, which, you know what? In my eyes, is what it is. To me, that's a reflection. How are you treating that person?
Right.
Are you actually treating them in the way they're like, I don't want to go. Like, I mean, I easily could. You know, it's usually the saying, you know, is grass greener on the other side. And most of the time, yes, it can be. But at the same time, are you willing to put the work in for it?
Right.
I mean, a lot of people, it comes down to it. It's so much more is in the industry, what you have to do within a company. Just running any company, doesn't matter what industry it is, running a company in general, like, you don't understand it until you're actually starting to do it. And then you're like, oh, wow. I mean, like, I thought I understood it because I grew up in it. I was like, oh, I understand. And then, like, I remember the first time I got the company really dropped on me, I was maybe 18 or 19. And it wasn't even like it really got dropped on me. My parents disappeared for 2 weeks on a cruise in the Caribbean. And it was, if you call us, it's like $20 a minute. Someone better be dying. Like, there better be a death or something if you're calling me right now. So I took pride in the fact that I never called them. Like, I knew where payroll needed to be submitted to. Like, I got the rundown with all that. And like when my parents came back, I looked at my dad and I was like, I don't know how you did this by yourself, raising kids in an industry you knew nothing about to begin with, and a new industry to begin with as itself. Because when he started, like tint was like if you even with paper towel, you pressed on the tint, you were scratching it. Like there was no shrinking, any of that. So I had no clue how he did any of that. And now we're at a point where we want to bring other people on just to educate, just to help the industry in itself and put out there for the consumer, like, hey, this is why we do this and why we don't do that. Because there's numerous proposals I go on, especially like security film, where I'll be told like, well, the other company told me that the attachments are optional. No, they're not.
The film is optional too. But
Like, if you want someone to break in instantly and just not have like
making it easier for them, I feel like if you put the film and no attachments.
Yeah, it's like you'll have less of a mess to clean up.
Right.
You'll be able to fold the tint up and throw it all away at once.
Yeah.
And it's just like being able to tell a customer that and try to explain it to him in a way like, I'm not trying to sell you on why you have to use me. I'm just letting you know if you do end up using someone else, make sure you do this because I want you to be safe. Like I don't want someone going into your home, putting the film on, and then that's something bad happening. Someone breaking into the house, they get right in, they do what they want. And now what's your response going to be is don't get safety film. It's pointless. It did nothing. People came straight into my house. That just hurt my industry. I just lost potential customers because of someone's incompetence, unfortunately, of them just trying to make a quick buck.
Right.
You know? And then coming back to taking care of your installers, like training, like we have had our successes in the past couple of years and we've had our failures. And unfortunately, a lot of the failures, and it still always in my eyes reflects back on me, is like bringing someone in who was trained by someone else and not being able to get through to them why we do certain things, or like, hey, you're having this result because in my experience, this is why you're having this result. And it's not saying you got to do it my way, you know, and then just that kind of falling apart, separating our mutual ways. But bringing in the new guys, like my big thing is if there is a mess up or something does happen, if it's the first time it kind of happens, especially because we're putting our guys through the ringers, like our auto guys we brought in within like the first year, we had a crew of 3 guys that collectively had probably about 4 years experience, but being overseen by our manager who has 17 years of experience, to where it's pretty much, I know you guys film's gonna get scrapped. Like there's gonna be dirt. A, don't try to pass it off. We're gonna rip it off. We're gonna redo it. And then if something happens to a vehicle, like we had last year, we had someone who tinted the windshield and then he went to go fish something out of the windshield. Didn't put the soak rope back down, didn't cover the dash, fried a chip in the dash. It was a Nissan GTR. It was a $2,500 chip. And it was one of those things where I told everyone in the shop, all right, it is what it is. You know, we're obviously it comes down to what you said. We're always going to take care of our customer. That's one thing that we've hammered home, that no matter what happens, we're going to take care of our customer. So when any customer tries calling us out, it's like, you can go look at our reviews. If any of my guys ever damage anything, I go out of my way to make sure we take care of it, because there's no reason to try to get around it. That's just going to end up costing me even more money in the long term. Like it's going to cost me more customers, and it's going to hurt my reputation, and our reputation's everything. So I pulled the installer aside, and last year was a bit of a rough year for him. He had a couple incidents where it's same thing. He's brand new in the industry, and we rushed him into like, hey, you're one of our lead techs now. I told him like, all right, because he's like, I'll help pay. I'm like, don't worry about it. But I'm going to tell you, learn from it. You make the same mistake again, then we're going to have a more serious conversation. Now we know it doesn't matter how much extra time you're going to have to take. If the customer's up there pacing back and forth, ranting and raving about how long it's taking, I do care, but I don't. Because when it comes down to it, I can always go up to him and go, sir, we didn't like how something turned out. We had to pull back the film and get something out of there. We had procedures in place to make sure we don't damage your vehicle. And that's why it took extra time. And if you go up there and you're just straightforward with the customer, they're just like, thank you, I appreciate it, and they'll calm down, they'll cool down, and they realize like, okay, you care more about the quality than you do getting me out of here, and like, I'm cool with that. We just had, unfortunately, last week, we had one of our installers just pulling a truck around for one of our accounts, one of our big revolving accounts, and it's a F-250, big brand new F-250, Super Duty, I think it was extra cab, pulling through our alleyway, which some of our tenants, unfortunately, have cars parked in areas they shouldn't be. And he was like, I'm assuming in his mind, he's like, I can fit. So he tried pulling through. Bad idea. Ended up running a crease down some parts of the body of the truck, hit the hubcap, hit the tire, popped the tire, dropped the truck. I called my customer and said, hey man, good news, your vehicles are done. Got some bad news though. Unfortunately, this is what happened. Of course, I told him, get it fixed, send me the bill. I'm get the check written. There's no worry at all. I'm sorry that it happened. We'll get it taken care of. We're throwing the spare on right now. And then later that night, my installer texted me, hey man, I'm so sorry. That was horrible judgment on my call. I never should have done it. Let me know how much it's going to cost. I want to help pay for it. I'm like, dude, don't worry about it. Like I told him earlier that day too. I pulled him aside after it happened. I was like, hey, next time, if you have to think, will I fit? Back it up. We can open up the automatic gate on the other side. It's not a big deal at all. All I care about is you learn from the situation. That's it. Like you're brand new to this. Like the amount of stuff I've probably screwed up, or actually I know that I have screwed up. Like I know I've broken maybe at least 10 windshields from trying to pop off mirrors and stuff like that. And I had the benefit of the doubt of being the owner's son, to where, yes, I got chewed out for the most part, but at the same time, deep down, I know my job security is not going anywhere. Like I know I'm not going anywhere. That's the one comfort I kind of have, unless, obviously I did something really, really out of line, I guess would definitely get me canned. But at the same time, I don't know how it feels for them to operate in a situation where like something like that happens. Like I can only imagine what they're feeling. Like, oh my God, like this is going to cost me this much money, and am my job going anywhere? And I've gone out of my way to ensure every single one of my guys. Like, if it's something that is we haven't experienced it, and it's an incident that we can't account for happening, or we don't have procedures in place, what are you going to do, man? Don't worry about it. Like we'll move past it. It'll get paid for. All I care about is you learn. Just learn from it. Just don't let it happen again.
The way you handle it turns it into an opportunity, because I really believe, and examples have shown in my past, and I feel like probably in this example that you just said, where, that customer could have got their tint and moved on, and that would have been it. But you damaged their truck, and then you took care of them so well that more than not, you've like earned their business for life, because they're like, these people are like, it's an opportunity. Like it might feel like a disaster, but a lot of times it's actually an opportunity. And those are the ones who leave like the best reviews. And then it was an opportunity for you to show what kind of leader you are to your staff member. That staff member now has a much higher respect for you and the company, and, feel like this is a really great place. And like, it sucks because maybe it's like a dent in the pocketbook, and it's like maybe a little stressful that day, like just hearing about it, but truly it can lead to like a stronger staff member, a happier customer somehow. Yeah. I
already got a call this morning from that same account. We have my guy already went and picked up another car up this morning. Of course. Like, so there was no, and when I talked to the account manager, he was just like, when it gets fixed, we're not going to know. We're not going to have the final bill for another 2 weeks. I know you guys are good for it. I'm not worried about it. We have another car for you. It's like, guy will be there this morning to pick it up. Already picked it up. And to say like you're pointing out, like earning more business, the guy with the Nissan GTR brought his wife's car in.
Of course, because you're trustworthy. Things happen no matter what. It's just you want it to be taken care of. Yep. That's all.
Oh, yeah. The other one, we had one of our guys had an older Cadillac, and 07 strip and tint. And they didn't pay attention, unfortunately. They left water drips on the doors. Customer took pictures of it, left us a 1-star review. So as soon as I noticed it, I reached out to the customer, talked to him. And he had a seat in the back where the seam popped too. 07, leather. We had a really good conversation. He was very happy that I reached out to him. And then I told him, like, hey, if you have time, come by. I'll clean him. I'll take care of the doors. I don't want you to have to go. I don't want you to have to clean them. And I don't want you to have someone come clean them. And then I got off the phone. I thought about it. One of my installer's dad owns a detailing company. I was just like, I called him up and I was, hey, is your dad available? How much would it be just to clean the inside of a car real quick? It was like, I think $50 or $60. I was like, called the customer quick, hey, I want to send out our personal detailer to come take care of these doors. I was able to send it out, sent them out, got it taken care of within, as soon as that happened, instantly, review changed to a 4-star. He updated and said, owner called and left an even better review after that, to where it's like showing like, yes, hey, we messed up, but also instantly took care of it, because everyone's human. I expect my guys to try to stick by our standard operations and like the rules, I would say, that we have posted up on our back wall or in our back automotive bay, where it's like the certain checklists, like, hey, check door panels for drip marks, make sure these things are done before the car gets pulled around. But at the same time, they're human. It's going to happen. It is what it is. just learn from it and move on. And to be honest, like that one complaint that at first when they were green was getting that a little more than I wanted. I don't think ever like it happens, but it happens once in a while, which is to be expected. Like I just said, like earlier, the same thing. I am going to forget something every once in a while. There's going to be a task that unfortunately, like I get other thing piled on top of me, and then I should have taken care of it right then, and I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm going to take care of it, and we're going to move on. I'm going to try to make sure it doesn't happen again. But I can't guarantee it. But I'm going to try as hard as I can, as long as I know that my team knows that I'm trying to make sure that doesn't happen. That's all I expect from them too. Is I just want to make sure that I know that you guys are trying to make sure that you're getting everything taken care of. If something slips through, I'm not going to come down on you. Like, what is that going to help? Like, it's not going to help anything. It's just going to make
destructive.
Yeah. And I would say us coming up underneath my dad, not to, like I said, biggest fuel, like at the same time, is how he would react to certain things, especially with us because we're his sons. And I mean, it definitely had kind of an impact. But now I look back at it now, I wouldn't change anything because lessons learned from it in both sides of how he would bend over backwards for people and do things for certain people. On my mind, I'm like, I would not be doing that. Like that guy can go piss up a rope in my mind. But at the same time, he would still do it for them. And then the other occasions where he'd blow up on a certain thing and he would recognize it a little bit later and then he'd try to go mend it. And it's like able to pull all those learning lessons from that. It was...
the opportunities like that, like they are opportunities, and not even just outward to the customer. Kind of goes back to the conversation earlier of training people and human capital, right? Like you're putting time into training people, you really care for them, you really want to see them do better. An incident like that, if we were going to take the stance of like $2,500 coming out of your next however many checks, now you're asking them to take on the risk of owning a business, but they're not the owner, right? So now you're incentivizing them to be like, well, why don't I just go do this on my own if I'm taking the risk also, right? So it's like responding to situations like that in a way where you're taking care of your people and not incentivizing them to then go, you know what? Well, I might as well just go do this on my own. But if we actually have their back and, hey, we're taking the downside risk of if something happens, because we know it might happen, like that's an extra perk for someone to feel a little less pressure on, you know, the day to day. So it's like, it's so many different little things there that feed each other. Like take care of people, period. Whether it's the customer or your people that you're working with every day.
Well, the one thing I've had to, that's like the one thing from Gary Vee, I don't know exactly how I worded it in the clip, but the clip was like expecting an employee to do what you do or expect them to invest what you're investing in your company. Like it's never going to be, you should never expect them to do anything like that in it. I'm trying to remember how he phrased it because he phrased it so it resonated with me really well. And the fact of to expect someone to act just like you do is unreasonable. You know, they don't have this different skin in the game. It's you can't expect someone to operate the way you're operating. Like we'll put in 70, 80 hours in a week if we need to when it comes down to for certain jobs or tasks or smaller tasks, but that's what's required of us for the business itself. I shouldn't require that from anyone else. I need to know what their needs and their wants are and like what makes you happy. Like what do you want to do within the company? You know, I don't expect everyone to do exactly what I'm doing. But no, expecting your employees to do exactly what you do is an expectation that is, and I didn't realize it was a bar. You're setting a bar for them to almost, I guess, kind of to fail in my eyes, almost a little bit. Like you should know exactly, you should have that personal relationship with each one of your people to understand what they are. Like some people just want, not say they just want to work 40 hours a week, but they want to go work like a normal week and they want their time off and they want to know where they're going to grow to and what they're going to do. Like, you know, they're not, hey, I'm not trying to grow a company to the size of what you're doing. I'm not trying to put that time in, and to expect that from somebody, I think is definitely a little over the top.
Yeah. I'm familiar with that Gary Vee quote. Definitely. Yeah, it is kind of ridiculous to expect that, and I think a lot of people do, and then they get frustrated when people aren't giving that back. One of the other things he always talks about is like he wants to train people up to be the best they could possibly be, and then if they are going to move on, help them in that process. You know, like, and I feel like we truly do operate in that way.
Do now?
We've definitely gotten a lot better with it. I mean, right, Armando has a jiu-jitsu gym AE Jiu-Jitsu. There's certain days of the week that, my lead architectural installer right now has to be off no matter what by 4:00 because he has to go teach his kids class. So there's 3 days a week that has to be kind of part of our schedule.
And of course, that's what you want, right?
Yeah.
You want the people to be able to do and grow and do the things you want, just as you want that for yourself.
Yeah. And what's cool is like we've worked that out. That's cool. And he's willing to come in at 4 a.m, 5 a.m, whatever we need to do to make sure we get what we need to get done for the day done. And then that kind of bleeds with the whole crew is doing that. And we've got other guys that want to be off in time to go train at night. So it's like, okay, we're going to accommodate for these things. Like where in the past, it's like we scheduled this for this day and it has to be done no matter what and nobody can have off. And it's like, well, let's try to like figure out how to work it out. Like there are times when we're going to have to work long hours and we're on a big job and it's on a deadline and that's going to happen. And there's an occasional like ahead of time, like, hey, this coming Friday, like a month from now, we're going to have this big project where we have to work through the night. Is there any way you can get someone to cover your class? And it's a back and forth that works really well.
It's a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's...
It's not just like, this is how it is.
And then again, I'm going to point towards Tint Wiz making that possible for us to be able to open those lines of communication, improve the efficiency of how we run and work our jobs. Now we're able to fit in a job that probably would have taken the entire day. Now because we have the correct sizing in there, we have pictures of the job. They know what they're walking into. They know what they need. They're not overfilling the van with a bunch of extra stuff that they may not need. Patterns are already cut. They're able to walk in and just knock a job out, And then also through the program itself, ask them like, hey guys, like this is going to be a long day. Like we need to get this done with customer's request of something like, and then it becomes a conversation, not just, hey, you're doing this. Because, you can force someone and tell them, like, this is going to happen. Otherwise, your job's gone. But that's only going to fly for so long. And then they're gone. And then where are you at? And what are you going to do? You're screwed.
And you're on Facebook saying how you can't hire anybody.
Yeah, you got to be a little flexible, right? Like, we've got another Ian. Ian's going to school, so there's certain days he needs off. And it's like, all right, well, are there any of those days that you've been taking off that you might possibly be able to work? So we've come up with a way now where it's like, okay, you're normally off this day and this day, but if you want to get some extra days in, you're going to schedule yourself as being available in Tint Wiz. And now when Ricky or Misty they're scheduling something, they see, oh, I've got this extra installer available today. So we've now made that a thing. So it's like, you don't even need to call and ask. Like, all right, for the next 60 days, that these people are going to be available on these days that they normally don't work.
Yep.
And it's just on the calendar.
Yeah, that's been a big help in the fact because now I'm not calling, hey, ask him if he can do this. And if they're on separate jobs, now I'm running through 3 different phone calls. And it's like, if I'm calling my customer, I want to be able to know by like, I'm looking at the map, seeing where the rest of my jobs are. And then I'm clicking through the days and I'm trying to fit them in which works best for me. And then if they say yes, awesome. If they don't, they ask for a different day, then I'm like trying to figure out, okay, where it would make sense to put them into where it's say, I want to start my guys on this side of town and let them work their way all the way back. Or if they're just on that side of town, keep them in that side of town instead of putting them over here, then over here, then over here. Like no one wants that downtime in between jobs. I just want to get going. Like if my next job's like down the street or on my way back home, that's even more motivating. That makes it even more efficient. And then it allows having that kind of scheduling system allows everyone in the company, from in my eyes, top down, to where we can all schedule in the things that we kind of enjoy doing. Like this past weekend, I know last time we talked on your podcast, we were getting ready or training for a 100-mile race, Javelina 100.
Didn't you just say things we enjoy doing?
Yeah.
And that's what I actually that's a question I'd love to ask you is, what was the motivation behind doing that? Because it's not something that I would imagine. Like I've never woken up and been like, I'm going to train and run 100 miles.
So for me, he got into it originally from, I know we spoke about this a little bit, I think an episode or two ago. He got into it originally being in the military, running, and then just slowly improving his health and stuff like that. And he dragged me into it. I've always kind of had a small affinity for running growing up through high school, even though I was always the bigger fellow, the fluffy kid, I would say. Some of my, I would say, old baseball buddies would agree. I was always kind of a little bit bigger. So through high school, I wanted to get into cross country, but the downfall for me is I played baseball. Cross country was during intramurals. I was not a good enough baseball player to skip intramurals. I wouldn't have made the team. And baseball was my life. So I always just stuck to baseball. And then like when we had to do conditioning, sprints, I hated. The long distance stuff, I actually kind of enjoyed a little bit. So fast forward way down the line, he kind of gets the ultra bug from reading Born to Run and kind of figuring out like, you can do this. What?
Yeah. Getting out on the trails was big for me because road running, I still don't enjoy it that much. It's more tolerable because I do it a lot more with my daughter now. But getting out on the trails that's what got me.
So from there, he got me to join a 25K after I think you already did your 55K ultra.
Yeah.
So he got me to join a 25K of the same race. And at the time, obviously was trying. I wanted to get in shape. I've always had the aspirations to get in shape and make myself better. And my legs, I had shin splints in high school. So it's like, I didn't know how my legs were going to react. Trail running absolutely saved my legs. Like I remember trying to train for that 25K and just like my calves would hurt and then my lower back. And then he'd be like, lean back a little bit more. Do this to take the pressure off, which I didn't really understand any of that at the time. Now, going through this last race, I understand a lot of it, a lot more. So got me to that 25K, and then I had aspirations to do a marathon. And started training for it, hurt my knee, backed off of it. And then 2018, when my son was born, I still was wanting to do one. As soon as my son was born, the first night my son was born, I was in the hospital holding him. And it's like, as soon as I put him down, I went on my phone. And the race I was going to join the previous year, I just went online and joined. I did a marathon. It was called Running with the Devil. It was in June in Vegas, just outside Vegas. It's in the Lavelle Canyon between here and Pahrump. So it gets up to about, I think the high is 97, but it's like a nice 97, especially for a Vegas local. It's like a nice 97. So I did that, and after finishing that one race, at the time I then listened to Born to Run. I started listening to David Goggins, and it just kind of spiraled. I finished that race, and there was an older gentleman, which I still to this day I regret not talking to him. Going up mile 18, 19, it's like about a 3/4 of a mile, like almost straight up. It's a walk, at least for me. The majority of people at the times I was running, it was a walk. And I was right next to him, and I wish I would have talked to him, and I didn't. Because I wanted to know, like, why are you doing this? Like he was moving, but like it's just, you look at him, and then I looked at his bib, and he's doing the 50K. So he's going 31 miles. Like I was like, okay. I finished my race. And I see him go to his drop bag and start pulling his stuff out and head back out. And like, I'm done at that point. Like I'm hurting, I'm in pain. And I was like, I want to know what that feels like. So from that and just Goggins and stuff, and did a 51K, and then just slowly started checking off distances. And then I got the big thing that got stuck into my brain was from Born to Run, Western States. It was the original 100-miler in the United States. It's the most prestigious one. It's hard to get into because you have to run a qualifying race just to get into the raffle. And then there's only 362 spots, and like a good 100 of those spots are already given away to the top. There's races that if you take first and second, you get a golden ticket, like almost like Willy Wonka, like you get automatic bid.
The race we were just at was
a golden ticket race. So 1 and 2,
big.
Yeah, 1 and 2 are those guys are already in from top 2 females, top 2 males. They're in the race. The previous year top 10 finishers of Western States get automatic bid back, sponsors and stuff like that. So you get a chance at about 206 spots. Last year there was 6,000 people that put in for the raffle, and there was, memory serves me right, about 60,000 tickets. And it's blown up in the past couple of years. It's probably almost tripled every single year. So my big push into doing these races, because this was my third 100-miler, I was thankfully able to finish. It was a hell of a journey.
So you got to qualify to get a ticket to enter the raffle for Western States.
Yeah,
so this is your third year in a row qualifying.
Yeah. So now this year,
now you'll have more tickets.
I'll have four. Obviously, year one ticket doubles. It doubles every year. So last year I had 2. Now this year I'll have 4 tickets. There was 5 people last year that had 9 years into it. So they had, I think it was 200. I forget what the math works out.
They all got automatics, right?
Well, 3 of them got pulled. And then the race director said to begin with, out of these 5 people, whoever doesn't get pulled, they're 1 and 2 or whatever it is on the wait list, which if you're on the top of the wait list, you're in. Usually they blow through the wait list just because injuries happen, people drop out because of timing, whatever it need be. So, but if you're in the top of that wait list, you can pretty much start training, you're in. So like my goal of originally just being a marathon and then evolved into all of a sudden fighting about Western States distances. And I wanted to see what the body could do. I mean, with Goggins, he did a 24-hour race on 3 days notice. And he did a sub 24-hour 100-miler. He did it in the 18 hours and I forget how many minutes, and did an extra loop just to make sure he hit the 100 miles. And like the race director of the race he was trying to get into, Badwater, was like, why'd you stop? It's a 24-hour race. And it was like, okay. And it's like, I just did 100 plus miles in 18 hours. Or like, you know, it's kind of like a funny jab at him. But like, that's just like, all of a sudden I started finding out like this stuff's possible. And like, I've always been kind of infatuated with trying to accomplish things that I guess haven't been done, and just never been able to find my kind of niche, or never thought I was good enough to do certain things. And then just running kind of stuck with me. You know, it just, I started training for it. And then as I started training, my health got better. I started losing weight because I started running the long distance I enjoyed because it allowed me to eat whenever I want. I love food. I love eating. So it started off with that. And then as I started running more weight came off. And then I was like, well, how can I improve my time? All right, I need to start getting my nutrition dialed in, start making me feel better. And then all of that started improving my work. I started being more efficient at work, more clarity, and just more sound in mind, you know, when it comes down to it. Like my wife would always point out, every time I got done with one of these races, I'd usually fall off, and I'd take like 2 or 3 weeks off and just not work out. You know, you're in a considerable amount of pain, you know, it's hard to move. And my mentality would change. I would almost deny it. And I know when she watches this episode, she's going to say, I told you so, which I've already told her that she was 100% right. Is if I'm not in a training regimen, I'm definitely the type of person where I don't necessarily need a goal, but like for me, my long-term goal right now is Western States. Past that, there are numerous, even further distances than the 100 I want to run. I want to do Badwater. Badwater is a foot race through Death Valley in July. It's 138 miles. Yeah. So it's you run up to the top of
Mount Whitney.
Mount Whitney. It's
so it's a bunch of elevation gains.
Yeah.
I mean, walking to the top of Mount Whitney is its own accomplishment.
Yeah. So you
running up there.
So yeah, you go through Death Valley, you hit the lowest point, and you go up to that point. Like and then the other infatuation is the kind of the belt buckles. Like I have my belt buckle on today. This was the Javelina one I just got.
I didn't even get to see it yet.
So I have that, and then I've slowly evolved that into now with my tattoo artist, I have my belt buckles tattooed on my leg. And this is after I kind of told him what I was doing. He's like, this is now his leg. Anytime I get a belt buckle, it's going to get added to my leg until the point where I finally get to run Western States. That'll be my last one, and then this leg will be done. And for me, running just kind of grabbed a hold of me because it just showed me that anything is possible. If you put the amount of time and training into something, you absolutely can do it, even though you might be telling yourself the entire time, what the hell am I doing and why am I doing it? Because I had plenty of those moments 2 days ago. Like the middle of the night, like I felt bad. It was his first 100-miler. The first couple laps went really well. We got through the third lap, and then going into the fourth lap, we had to be out and back by 6:30 a.m. Otherwise, we were going to miss the cutoff. Race is over. So we're going out on that last lap. I knew he was hurting because I knew I was hurting. Like it's just everything. I guess the easiest way to explain it, everything just hurts. Like there's no easy way to explain it. Like all your joints and your legs, just from the constant hitting. You'll go through highs where you're running and you feel great, and then all of a sudden you feel like dog shit. It is what it is, you know. And then you got to be really careful at the beginning of it that you don't go out too hard, because then you're gonna really screw yourself in the end when those miles really matter. So we kind of were fighting that the entire time, and then that last loop, we were heading out, and I told him like, hey, I got to get moving. If I stay still any longer, I'm going to lock up too much. I need to get going. So I felt bad. I took off on him. I started the loop without him. And I told him like, hey, catch me. Because I knew that had helped me in the past. And it's like one of those things we were on. I'm going to say I was being a tad bit selfish in the fact, like I knew if I did not get out at that time, there's a chance I'm not finishing this loop. And I needed to finish the loop.
No, don't do that. You asked me, I said go. I was waiting actually for a pair of gloves to be brought back over to me from where we were at, because I didn't realize that it was actually getting pretty cold. I was like, all right, I'm going to get them. And I know that he's trying to qualify for Western, and I didn't want to be the reason that he didn't make it. So it's like, all right. He said he was going to just walk for a while and give me a chance to catch him, but I could not get my legs moving. It was like a shuffle for 5 miles, like a really slow, pathetic shuffle where people are walking past me.
Oh, you're like, I'm moving.
Dominantly walking past me, like, and it was just like, just keep moving. But by the time I got to that next aid station, I knew that I'd have to run like 10-minute miles for 15 miles, including the next 6 miles being pretty steep uphill.
Rocky.
And it was like, that's not happening. So I was like, at that moment, I was like, I think I'm done. I didn't want it enough. I know that he was the one that was crazy training for it. And because I could have technically spent all night finishing that loop in misery and got a couple more miles in, but I wouldn't have made the cutoff to finish the 100 miles anyways. And I had all kinds of excuses built up in my head ready to go. It was my first 100K I'd ever run, so I was happy about that.
You did a good time, too.
Yeah, so those first 3 loops went fantastic, actually. Like, we passed mile 50, and I was like, dang, I've just done my first 50 miles ever. And we ran the whole last half of that loop, like, pretty strong, like 11 to 13-minute miles, which is pretty solid because of 14:30 is like a 24-hour 100-mile. So I was actually like feeling really good coming in off of that third loop. But one thing I think that I learned a lot on this one is all the other aid stations we stopped at that weren't like where our crew was. We were standing, we got what we needed to eat, potatoes and pickles. I think I got Jesse Eisler. I don't know if he'd ever see this. Probably just messed up his name, but he's trying to open a pickle business. Have you heard him talk about that recently? He sees that there's an opportunity for a pickle business. I think pickles and potatoes is going to be the smash hit.
Oh,
that was so good. But anyways, we'd come into these aid stations and we'd grab what we needed, fill up our waters. If we had a drop bag there, maybe grab something out of it real quick. But then we'd be out. So it was like we didn't get all stiff. We spent too much time, or at least I definitely did, at the main aid station between the third and fourth loop because trying to get back out, I was just like, anything more than a walk was just like unbearable.
Yeah, and in that race too, I mean, I enjoyed the layout of the trail you ran on. The first 11 miles were mostly all gradually up. You had some definitely incline in certain spots, but it was all gradual up, and then that was where all the rocky parts of the trail were too. So that always took you longer. So like on the fourth loop, when I got out there, I started going like the first half of that loop, I was dragging in the fact that I was turning in like 17, 18, almost like I think I turned in like 120-minute mile. And like I started doing the math in my head. I'm like, by the time I got to that middle aid station, it's like I had 2 hours and like 28 minutes to run 9.2 miles. So it's like, all right, I can spend maybe 10, 15 minutes here. And then I have to be gone. Otherwise, I'm going to put too much of a demand on how fast I have to run. But I also knew the back half of that trail was amazing. It was, in my eyes, senseless running. Perfectly groomed trail. No big rocks. All on a decline now as you head back down to base camp. It was the perfect kind of setup to where you had to be challenged to begin with. And as soon as you got there, you got the relief as soon as you got back out of, I can do the shuffle and do a fast shuffle and not worry about tripping and falling on my face. Because that's you. Going through those rocky parts suck. Because when you're going slow, you have so much more opportunity to trip, fall, jam your toe. It just sucks. So crossing that last fourth loop and getting to the aid station, like I knew I crossed before 6:30, and I was like, all right, I'm good to go. Went in to go sit down real quick, and in my eyes, like I wanted to sleep 10 minutes. I was exhausted. Like I had gone through certain caffeine. And at the time, I was like, I need like 10 minutes of sitting and leave me alone time. As I'm going to sit down, I have one of the other runners that we met up with a bunch of runners, or I ran into a bunch of Vegas locals, and we all kind of teamed up, and we had our whole all of the tents together. Which like I misread what they were going to have for us or not have for us, and like I called him in the last second. I was like, hey, bring out our pop-up tent. We do need it. And I ran into this guy, and he's like, hey, no, we got an extra pop tent. We need an extra space. And I was like, I got a space. So it worked out perfectly. As I'm in there, one of the other runners that was running was like, hey, not only do we have to cross the finish line, we have to be out of here by 6:30. Otherwise, we're done. Which I don't know if it was true or not, but it was probably what I needed to hear, because it all of a sudden got me like instantly, like I ate what I could eat, switched my stuff out, took my shirt off, put my next shirt on, and I got out instantly. And like I was already contemplating that whole fourth loop. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to finish on time. I don't know how I'm going to run a fifth loop in time because now I'm going to have 6 hours. I had like 15 minutes of downtime, and then it's back to I have 6 hours to run either a 15-minute mile on average and then spend an hour collectively between my aid stations if I need it. So it's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I got out, started going, and I have no idea what came over me. All of a sudden I was able to start running. Got past the first aid station, and then like technically the hardest section was from first aid station to the second one. Rocky uphill was turning in 12, 13-minute miles. I have no idea where it came from. It's kind of like, it is just one of those things. Finished that back end, got past the jackass turnaround. I was running back in, knew like, all right, I've got this. And then just like, this was definitely one of my more emotional races to where it's like, I couldn't believe it was happening. All right. So the getting through the last aid station and like starting working the timeout in my head, it's like, all right, I got to get myself going again. And again, thankfully hitting the senseless running was a big help. But like as soon as I got to 95 miles, I knew that like that's at a point where, barring like obviously snapping something in my leg, like I know that I'm gonna finish this. And I was doing lives every 10 miles. And then as you probably, if you look at my Instagram, I think at mile 60, they stopped because I was hurting and I was in my head constantly. And last thing I was thinking about, I'm pulling my phone out to do an Instagram. I really wanted to try to do every 10 miles just so everyone could kind of get the state of where I was at mentally. And
yeah, I wish I would have recorded more too. I've got one little clip of us running with Courtney DeWalter, which we got to do for like 6+ hours, which was wild because I don't know. I was thinking about it. This best female ultra runner in the world by far. This year she won Western States, Hard Rock, and UTMB, like the 3 biggest races. She was only out there because she was running with her mom as her mom's pacer. I think she might have actually entered the 100K with her mom, but she was running with her mom. And so she's never running at that slower speed. And we just happened to hit up with her like at an aid station on the second loop and got to run the whole second half of the second loop, basically like within eye shot of her and her mom. And then we start the third loop and ran into her again on the third loop at an aid station. And like, we were both like, should we go get a picture? Should we talk to her? We were like, no, let's leave her alone. She's with her mom. And, but that was wild. Like, I mean, especially I'm a running nerd and I watch all these ultra marathon stuff on YouTube and stuff. And she's just, I don't know, my daughter is way into her too. And it's like, she's like the absolute best. She beats men in races. I mean, she's been on Rogan talking about when she won Moab and beat everybody by like 10 hours. Like, and it was kind of crazy. Like, that's her right there. Like,
no, we had that was an awesome moment where we were ahead of her for a while and we were just running at the same pace when it came down to it. And then we had a section where she was like just behind us. And then all of a sudden there's a runner who's running fast, passing us. And then they go,
you hear her screaming and yelling, go Zach, and turn around. It's Zach Bitter.
Yeah. Another guy that's like, I was hoping, I knew we would see him. I knew he was going to pass us eventually. At the speed he's running at, he's going to loop us eventually. So, am I going to notice it, or when is he going to do it? And it's like, it was surreal to be between Courtney DeWalter and Zach Bitter at some point in that race and be like, oh my God.
And she's like screaming and cheering for everybody that ran by. She was screaming and cheering for. She was awesome.
She was awesome. Like, I really wanted to get a picture, but at the same time, I finally almost had the courage. She just got done taking a picture, and then all of a sudden she started talking to her mom. I'm like, I am not gonna, like, nope, you're here to, like, doing these runs are hard enough. And this is her mom's first time doing this distance, and she's in her late 60s, and she was crushing it.
Yeah,
it was like, that's another reason why I absolutely love ultra running is, I guess, the community and like seeing all the different type of people out there, and it just showing that, like, when it comes down to it, it sounds cliche, but anything is possible. You just got to put your mind to it and want it enough.
Yeah, the community out there is amazing. This is something that I definitely want to make sure I get in on here, because I know on Instagram I told everybody we'd be talking about this on here. Thanking everybody that was out there.
Amazing race.
From my mom to my daughter to Brittany, Luca, everybody from Vegas trail community that was out there supporting each other, and then all the people volunteering at all the aid stations. Those aid stations were amazing. Yep. Aravipa put on an amazing race. And Jamil, I'm gonna mess his name up. Jamil, it's his company. He's an ultra runner also, and he jumped in and ended up running the race and qualified for,
he qualified for
Western. But he's like one of the top guys in the world, and he was kind of accessible and around the whole day before. The whole thing was amazing. All the volunteers, every aid station, it was pretty awesome. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a little bummed I didn't finish 100 miles, but I'm glad that I got a PR on the furthest I've ever gone. I kind of knew I hadn't gotten in enough volume training wise, so I'm actually really happy with how far I went. But I will complete a 100-mile race. I'm gonna definitely continue to train to do that. Got to find the right one.
Oh, I think it's that one. That one's.
Yeah, I think I might just have to go back there next year because honestly, I was really shocked how well I felt after the third lap, and then really shocked how much it swung the opposite direction, like almost immediately.
And for me, that came down to thankfully the experience I've had running 2 previous 100-milers, and I think that's the only way I got through it because I had about a 4-week stint in the middle of my training where I couldn't run. I ended up spraining my middle toe, and I started going to physical therapy, working on my foot. I was lifting and working out, but I wasn't getting my miles in. I was at the same spot. I didn't think I had enough volume in to actually get the race done. So that's why in the middle of the night, like doubt set in, and it was lingering over me the entire time. 2 things that kept popping in my head was my wife and my son. My son running with me at the end of that race.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet. That was
Something I'm obviously never gonna forget. But getting that on video and like how excited and pumped he was, and like even when we were out in the middle of the night, it turns into like a little party, out start finish, like a little disco party. And then like I look on Instagram or on Facebook, my wife posted a video of him. He's sitting there dancing, and like everyone's cheering him on. Like even running up with him, he ran up with me a couple times, and then just the community like cheering him on. He has Iron Man suit on because it was a Halloween party, and like just. That kept me going. That's what got me through the night. Where it was my wife and my son. And my mom too. Like it's definitely my most emotional race. Like my last post on Instagram, like it was hard for me to kind of talk at certain points. And it was like, I mean, I told her, I was like, there were points I was listening to, Imagine Dragons, my son's favorite band. And like, he has one album that he listens over and over again. Like I'm sitting there listening to this album and I'm like bawling my eyes out, running in the middle of the desert by myself. I'm just like, God damn, what is going on right now?
yeah.
But it's the seeking out something that seems impossible and then accomplishing it. That's what drove me, I guess, is the longest way of answering our question ever. That's what drives me, I guess, to run the ultras. Is it just proving to myself that anything is possible? You just got to be determined enough and want to put the work into it. So that's what drove me. And I know that you wanted to do a bike race. Is that still on the dockets to do?
Not on the dockets at all.
No,
No, completely. No, I will say that the positive that came out of that short, ambitious goal was that I did spend a couple months on a Peloton. It was tremendously great for my knee. I actually really liked the Peloton. I had a Peloton for 2 years. I didn't step on it once. 2 years it sat in my garage. My wife used it. I didn't use it once, but I spent a couple months on it, rehab my knee. But with that said, like I definitely, it's beyond inspiring. Like to hear you guys and to watch you, before this, but to hear, the story and so on. And there's going to be a time like where, whether it be a long race or a long bike ride or a long something, because it's contagious and inspirational. And obviously, like, I don't think there's a coincidence that I'm sitting in front of, basically you should have 4 trophies around you total, I think. And you're also chasing things like 100-mile runs and 50-mile runs and running your business and the leadership and the whole thing. I think it all goes together, and I can't say how impressive it is. You do it for yourself. I'm sure, but it rubs off on everyone else.
Oh, hopefully. I don't know.
No, it definitely does.
It's
Not
definitely.
hopefully, it definitely
I
does.
know. But it's also like coming definitely from a selfish point of like, I know that I could just do better, like growth. Like even though I didn't get the 100 miles in, this was a success for me by far. I've never gone further than 42 miles before. And my only, this is now twice, my only ultra that I've ever entered into and didn't finish is the Javelina Jundred. And in 2018, it was the 100K. Because I blew up, and I completed that this weekend. Technically, I didn't get the buckle for it because I was entered in the 100-miler. if there was available slots to register for the 100K, that's what I would have registered for. I knew I didn't have enough miles in me to get 100 miles in. So that probably, comes down to belief at the end of the day. I feel like if I would have had a pacer at the end there, I might have been able to push forward. But it was so easy to talk myself into like, I'm done.
There's just like no doubt in the world that you're going to do it.
Easy.
Though,
it was so easy. The timeline was what really got me. Like knowing that I'd have to go run some crazy times to get to the finish line to keep going I was just like, it's not gonna happen. And I was like, all right, cool. I can go lay down now. That sounds fantastic.
Oh, it creeps up on you. It absolutely does. Like, no, I've had like the one DNF I had, that was where I found the excuse and I went with it. And that's why I dropped from the race. I knew I could have finished that race, but at the same time, it was one of those things where it's like I found the excuse and went for it. Like I was trying to find multiple excuses this past weekend. But it came down to it. I was like, as soon as I got past the 3 loops, it's like I didn't just suffer 60 miles, not to really I know I can do this. Like, and just like slowly talk okay, 5 more miles to the next aid station. Like setting those little teeny goals and accomplishing them, just kind of build yourself back up. And then when you get to a certain point, you stop looking at your heart rate because it's like I'm riding a high right now. I'm just gonna run because I don't care what it's gonna cost me in the back end. Like that last loop, I ran that first half hard. And I definitely felt it on the back end. But as I thought, when I got close when I got to the last aid station, I only had 4 more miles left. As soon as I started moving in that one, all of a sudden I was able to start picking my pace up because I knew like I've got 4 miles. Like, what's 4 miles? I just ran 96 miles. Like, what are you talking about? And then adrenaline kicked back in. And then like by the time my last mile was I think my hardest ran mile. I think I ran like a 10:30 mile my last mile, which I don't know how I got my legs to do it. No clue. But it was just the straight adrenaline and emotional dump at the same time was, I don't know. It's hard to explain. I was even trying to talk to him during the race and, I know we're starting to get towards the end here, so I'll try to wrap this up. Toward at the middle of the race, I told him like, I'm starting to get the feeling now. When you get past like 50, 60 miles, you start getting the feeling, the aches and the pain in your legs of like, the feeling that you chase. And like Goggin talks about it in his first book after his first race of like when he pretty much had rhabdo and he's laying in the shower shivering in pain. It's like you're almost chasing that in a way. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's still even hard for me to explain now is because I knew at that time I was like, all right, I'm close to it. And the only way I can get to it is I got to run 100 miles is to actually get to the point where like yesterday, like my body, like even this morning, like I woke up in the middle of the night just sweating because my body's still having a little bit of trouble regulating its temperature at the moment because what I just put it through. It's, I don't know, chasing that feeling. And I've been trying to think of a way to express it in words and I still not able to. But chasing down that goal and that feeling and getting to that point and just like that sense of accomplishment it's the highest of highs. It's unbelievable. Like getting handed that belt buckle. Like as dumb as it might be, it's like, and the other stupid little thing I'm talking myself into, and I know it's like because I already know my good friends, my buddy, my tattoo artist, like we already have this like arrangement to where he's like, dude, that's my leg. Like I know, like I finished this race on time, I get another tattoo. Hell yeah! Like it's just like a stupid little positive thing, but like I'm stoked to go do that. Like I can't wait. Like I've already talked with him. He's like, dude, when we get lined up, I was like, let's get on the books. Like now I get to add that and now I get to have that, like wear that accomplishment. It's just like a constant reminder of myself. Again, like it always goes back to like, it's possible. It's definitely possible, as much as the lows suck, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I think it feels so good because you know how much work you had to put in to do it. Like it wasn't just the 29 hours of the race. It was the 8-10 hours a week of getting up early and getting in 2-3 hour runs over and over and over again. Like that's all of that is now, and then that one moment you get to realize it all like paid off. Like it's possible, but you got to work for it.
Yeah,
that's one thing I knew. A 30-mile week was the best I did going into this, and I knew that wasn't enough. Like you did the work to achieve it, and like you got to recognize it at the end. So of course it felt great.
Yeah. Well, on to the next one though. So, we want to thank you for joining us. This has been since we started this endeavor, you've been one of our biggest supporters.
For sure.
Even I say the past couple of years, the advice you've given us when we've asked you certain questions about even certain like internal workings of our company, of like ideas and decisions that we've made, just run it by you because that's how open you are of a person to where I know I'm going to get an honest opinion, and like it's been so helpful. You have no idea. Like the big one is you guys need to be running your business. You guys need to stop installing. I feel like this past year we actually finally took that advice, even though you've been giving it to us, I think, for the past couple of years. And we are now, I look back like, damn, we should have listened a little earlier. But everything happens for a reason. But like, I wanted to say thank you so much for everything you've done. Thank you for everything you've done for our business. Tint Wiz is an absolute, I know we say it all the time, it's an absolute game changer. It has helped us grow our company and manage and lead our company so much more efficiently and seamlessly. So thank you so much. And for everything you do for our industry. Like I said, you've changed the culture of our industry, and you have no idea. I think that's lit a fire underneath a bunch of different people in our industry of like, it doesn't need to be like what it was. Like, well, there's no reason to fight with each other. We can do this together. We can all grow together. And thank you so much.
The feeling's mutual, really. I have the highest level of respect for you, and that respect just keeps growing. You just added 100 miles and another 100 miles to that respect too. So, like I said, the feeling's completely mutual. And thank you for all you're doing and having me on here. And it's a great time to be living where we can interact. We've lived on different sides of the country, essentially, or at least different states, and I feel like we've known each other, like intimately, like friends for years now. So,
no, I can't really say more than what Ricky just said. Yes, thank you for everything. I know that anytime I've got a question about something, and I'm debating anything when it comes to business, or maybe we're back and forth on something, if I hit you up, it's almost an immediate response, and it's really appreciated because I know that your time is valuable and you've got a lot going on, but the friendship is real and is felt, and I'm really mad that I missed out on VCon this year.
Next year's in LA.
It's in LA. I wanted to bring that up
place.
real quick. So yeah, VCon LA next year. So
August, right?
You need to come to that too.
Yeah,
You have to.
All right, I will.
So we got to get that scheduled.
Get that scheduled.
That was the one thing I wanted to get off on here.
All right.
I'll get back on the Peloton. I won't let you down. We're going to figure out a long bike race or run race or something.
Right. And we'll get you on here again in the future.
Oh, most definitely. Definitely want to have you
And
back
we'll
on.
definitely come back on Tint Wizdom.
And any other 3Ks you join, let me know I'm in.
Okay. Oh,
All right.
make sure you subscribe to Tint Wizdom. Actually, you're on every platform.
Tint Wizdom, yeah.
Yeah. Subscribe to Tint Wizdom.
And you guys know how this all works. Follow us on all our social media. Subscribe. All the different podcasts channels. And, we appreciate your support. Leave a review, and we look forward to the next one. Thank you, everybody.